Hi everyone, I hope we're all doing well today, this lovely Thursday afternoon. Yes, I know that today is not our usual our usual day for this program. We normally have it every Wednesday, but yesterday I was engaged in something else and I felt that rather than us not having this important conversation at all this week, we'd rather have it late. Right, so today we are still going to be bringing you the same lively, educational and informative session that we always bring you on this channel. I remain your man, Iken Naomezudike, and this is Modesty's Property Corner, season number 1, episode number 36. And in this October Black History Month, we are making our own contributions towards the rich history of the black race and contributing towards the enrichment of the black race through our educational and informative sessions. So we're dedicating this session to a topic or a particular issue that specifically addresses one of the major challenges facing the black communities worldwide, especially those of them in diaspora, in modern and developed countries. And what are we going to be talking about today? We are going to be discussing the attitude of the black communities to insurance. The attitude of the black communities to insurance. And the insurance we are going to be focusing on today is not your car, home, or gadgets insurance. We're going to be focusing on life insurance and other personal protection policies. How are the black communities responding, reacting, behaving, or how do they view this sort of insurance that looks after your personal and financial protection? So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. And like I said, this is our own way of contributing to the black community and educating the black community and adding value to what the black community brings to the table when it comes to financial and economic contribution. The black community have a history, or there is this stereotyped mindset that they have towards insurance. And there is this impression that people have about the blacks or the black community, especially when it comes to insurance. They just believe that black people don't care about insurance. It's not their thing. So I'm going to be using some facts or some statistics from America to address some issues, and then we are going to identify the loopholes or the gaps in those issues, and then why those issues are there and how we can address them. So we'll be looking at some facts and some information regarding blacks and insurance. We're going to be looking at the solutions to some of those issues. We're going to be exploring why should we even bother insuring. Okay, and we're going to be looking at some of the challenges that the black communities face when it comes to the issue of insurance. First of all, let me give you some facts about insurance and the black community that is very interesting. In America, about 56% of black Americans have life insurance. Would you believe that? And that is above the national average of 52%. Right? And there are about 44 million black Americans as at the last census in America. And about 56% of them, over 20 million of them have life insurance. Meanwhile, the national average in America is 52%. And I must say to America, congratulations, because your numbers and your average is way higher than what it is here in the UK. In the UK here, just over 30% of the UK adult population have life insurance. So America, if your national average is 52%, hooray, you are doing great. And then if the black community, 56% of them have life insurance, then yes, that must be something to celebrate, isn't it? So why are people being so pessimistic about black people not taking life insurance or not taking life insurance seriously? Okay, no. So here is what exactly is a tad bit wrong. Of that 56% of black Americans that have life insurance, 46% of them are underinsured. 46% are underinsured. And what does underinsurance mean? It means that the value of your insurance policy cannot really cater for the needs that that insurance policy was meant to cater for in the first place. That at the time the insurance policy matures or is due or a claim is made and they pay out, it doesn't solve the problem for which you even took it out for. So you might find out that, oh, this person has a life insurance policy. By the time the insurance pays out, the family still has no home to live in. They are kicked out of their homes because they can't pay their mortgage. It means the life insurance did not even cater for the mortgage. It couldn't even pay for the mortgage. So they are kicked out of the house. So it then tells that a good number of the insured black Americans, right, do not have adequate insurance cover. They have just enough to take care of their burial expenses or funeral expenses, and that's it. And then when you ask some of them, according to the research that was carried out in America, when you ask some of them, they will say to you, my parents left nothing for me, so I might have as well just focus on burying myself. And once I do that, that's fine. The children, they can find their way, which is not the right mentality really to have, which is not the right approach to have. Now, some of us don't know that insurance is a form of generational wealth transfer. So here is another worrying statistics about generational wealth transfer. Only about 10% of black American families receive generational wealth transfer from their families, like they inherit something from their families, as against 46% of white families in America. That is staggering. That is shocking. So now you can now see where the gap is beginning to appear. It's not in the general statistics of number of Americans or black Americans who have taken life insurance. It is in the sufficiency of the provisions made by that life insurance and how that translates to generational wealth transfer. So if that life insurance is not even enough to cater for the family and for the things you want them to cater for, how would there be enough for you to transfer? So you see, only 10% of the black families do actually get some form of inheritance, be it insurance or properties or whatever. Okay? Now, talking about that generational wealth transfer, there was a research carried out by an organization called Life Happens and LIMRA in America show that the median range or the median value of the wealth that is inherited by black American families is just over $52,000. It's about $52,240, right? Meanwhile, the median value of wealth that is inherited by white families in America is around over $83,000. So you can see that the black families actually inherit about 60% of what the white families inherit or they pass on. So that the gap also exists in that range, and you can see how we are beginning to link the dots. So most black families in America, what they actually do is they just make provisions for their funeral ceremonies or for their funeral costs in their insurance. Their insurance can barely just bury them. And as long as that happens, they are fine with that. Because some of them already have the mentality that I did not inherit anything from my parents. Why should I bother leaving something for the generations to come? So that becomes a mentality thing. It becomes something that is embedded in the black community that needs addressing. And the only way to address it is by education. And that's exactly what we are doing here today. All right. So let's look at some of the challenges that the black communities have when it comes to arranging insurance and when it comes to having life insurance or other forms of financial protection. Number one that we're going to look at here is generational mentality of no legacy left, which I have mentioned earlier on. A lot of the black communities or the black African communities have that mentality that I did not inherit anything from my parents. Why should I bother leaving something behind for the children? If I can bury myself, fine. Even if I can't bury myself, if I die, it's none of my problem. My children and the rest of the family will have to take care of that. If they want to bury me, let them bury me. If they don't want to bury me, they can throw me wherever they want to throw me. You know, it's that lackadaisical attitude that is affecting the attitude of the black communities towards insurance, because they already think I did not inherit anything from my parents, so I do not owe my children or my generation unborn any. I do not owe them any favors. Arranging insurance shouldn't be a priority for me, because if they are going to be the beneficiaries, if they don't benefit from that, that's none of my business. So it's one of the challenges that the black communities are having when it comes to considering whether to take out insurance. So, for example, myself, I would say to you, my dad wasn't educated to the point where he would be thinking of having life insurance. And even if he knew about life insurance and how important it was, he had a bigger challenge of financial constraints. Not enough money to even pay for his life policies, to leave something behind, and all the rest of them. Okay, so I wouldn't then say because my dad didn't leave that much wealth for me, or didn't leave any wealth for me, I'm then going to pass that same legacy onto my children by saying I'm not going to leave anything for them. So that's number one challenge. The second challenge that the black communities are facing when it comes to arranging insurance is the financial constraints that they face. Okay, now it's not news, and everybody knows, especially if you come to the modern developed world like the UK, the US, and other areas. Some of the most deprived areas in these developed countries are occupied by blacks and ethnic minorities. That's where some of the most deprived areas in the UK are occupied by blacks and ethnic minorities. And there is serious inequality of opportunities for people of color, especially blacks. You know, there is serious inequality of opportunity. They find it difficult to get, jobs that pay them as well as they should pay them. For those of them who manage to get those jobs, they work double hard to get to whatever reasonable position that they find themselves. So these lack of opportunities translates into poverty. It translates into financial constraints. So you find out a lot of black communities, black African families are struggling. They are struggling for money. They are struggling for survival. They are struggling to make ends meet. They are struggling to make ends meet. And because that happens, they really cannot make adequate provision for insurance premiums, because their priority, first of all, is to put food on the table of their families. And if they haven't got enough money to feed and provide for those basic things, thinking about insurance becomes impossible. Thinking about wealth transfers becomes impossible. So that's a challenge that must be acknowledged. But we're not trying to make an excuse here. But we cannot ignore it or pretend that it doesn't exist. Okay? Number 3 challenge that we're going to be looking at here is the lack of trust in financial industry by the blacks. The lack of trust in the financial industry by the blacks. So you would be asking, why is it that the blacks don't really trust the financial industry? The history of mistrust between the black communities and the financial services industry, dates back a long, long while. For example, even in the 70s, in America, it was reported that, you know, companies like MetLife and other life insurance companies, they were selling they were selling insurance policies to the black communities that could barely even cover their funeral costs as life insurance policies. So when you compare what the life insurance value is as against the premium that they are paying, it's not worth it. It's seriously disproportionate. So the value of that life insurance could barely take care of their burial costs. So that's mis-selling. That mis-selling was later discovered, and it was only in the early 2000s that a financial settlement was made by MetLife and other financial institutions that engaged in that mis-selling targeted at the blacks and ethnic minorities. And they had to compensate them for that mis-selling or for those mis-sold policies. So you can imagine how long that has been going on. You can imagine how long the blacks and the black communities have been mistreated in that way. So things like that, they go on to entrench a serious mistrust in the minds of the black communities. And then when you talk to them now about life insurance and they say, oh, these guys, they don't like us, they hate us. When we buy insurance from them, they undercover us, and they sell us dummies, and they take our money, and you know they sell us insurance policies that are worth less than what we're paying for. And they have a genuine reason to feel that way. But that's a challenge now that, you know, those of us who are, you know, the black community, trying to convince our fellow blacks to embrace insurance, we're facing these objections because that mistrust has been built there. But that, again, is not an excuse. What we are highlighting are the real challenges that the blacks are facing when they are arranging insurance policies. The other challenge that, you know, is very real is the misconception about insurance in the black African community. I mean, I was an insurance salesperson when I was in Nigeria. And when I went to talk to people about insurance policies in Nigeria, I know the kind of feedback that I used to get. Oh, these insurance guys are crooks. Oh, these insurance guys, they don't pay claims. Oh, insurance is just a way of robbery. Oh, insurance is just taking your money. They take your money all the while, and if nothing happens, they take the money and then you die. Okay? If you don't die, they take all the money. Yes, that is term assurance. But that's misconception comes from a place of lack of education and lack of understanding of the concept of insurance. Because to the average black person, everything is a transaction. And if money exchanges hands, they expect to see a tangible value, a tangible returns. And if that return is intangible, they don't tend to see it. Or maybe until the risk that thing covers happens, that's when they actually see it. And so as long as, you know, they keep paying the premium and the insurance is for 20 years, and after 20 years, nothing happens and their money is gone, they feel they've been robbed. But they have not considered that within that 20 years, they have really been, you know, covered for all the risks that are pertain to their lives within that 20 years. So there are certain misconceptions that are posing a challenge to the black communities when it comes to arranging insurance. The other one is lack of education. Lack of education is a very big challenge. Education per se, not education as in going to school or going to university or going to college. That's not the kind of education I'm talking about. The kind of education I'm talking about is the kind of education that we are offering here right now, which is why we are offering this education on this platform, on this channel, free of charge, to enlighten people on things like this. The black communities need to be educated more about what insurance provides, what insurance is all about, and that education has to be conveyed in such a way that they will feel comfortable receiving it. And I must tell you that in the course of, you know, delivering my job as a mortgage advisor, with the Independent Mortgage and Loan Company, I have taken it as a responsibility to educate the black community, one family at a time, one individual at a time, one client at a time. So for every client that I arrange their mortgage, I make out time to speak to them about the essence and the importance of getting a life insurance. And the acceptance and the reception has been warm enough. I have met some very stiff-necked, stubborn people who are sticking to their guns. That's fine. I'm not going to force anybody. But majority of my clients whom I've been talking to about life insurance have received it warmly, because we sit down, we talk about these things, we bring these realities to play, and they understand those realities and they are beginning to respond more positively. So education is one of those things. But if there are more people like myself, because I noticed that black people, the black communities, they want more to me because I am one of them. I look like one of them. So if there are more people like myself in the financial services industry who are taking this education further into the black communities and talking to them, speaking to them in their own language, and they can see you as one of them, that education barrier will be broken. And as part of that education, I just want to let you know that on the 28th of October, I'm going to be in Manchester, at the Metropolitan University in Manchester, talking to a black community called the Nigerian Society of Engineers. We're going to be discussing things like properties, mortgages, protection and all that. So that is part of the education drive. And after the 28th, on the 29th, I'm going to be in Birmingham speaking at an event organized by a church as well, to talk to them about financial things like this, mortgages, properties, and protections and all that. And that is part of what we're doing, to educate people to understand more how these things work. The other challenge for the black communities when it comes to insurance is insurance misuse. Insurance misuse. What do I mean by insurance misuse? A lot of people, even those who have inherited their parents or their family's insurance policies, they have misused it. A lot of the black communities don't actually know how to use the insurance policies that they inherit. Some of them inherit that insurance policy and they blow it. They just go buy some expensive cars and then crash the car the next day. Some of them just spend it on frivolities. They don't actually use it to create wealth that they can then transfer to generation, and that is what it's meant to be. If you inherit that wealth from your family, from your parents, use that wealth to create further wealth so that the generations coming will now inherit that wealth, and it becomes a chain reaction. It becomes a transgenerational thing where the wealth can be transferred from one generation to the other, because that's the point of it. Not inheriting that insurance policy, and then blowing it the next day. It's pure misuse of the insurance policy. So if the black communities learn to keep that wealth going from one generation to the other, it will go a long way in solving this generational wealth transfer gap that exists between the black communities and the whites. The other challenge to insurance for the black communities is what we call the cultural history of communal life. In the past, the black communities, like Africans, they used to live, a very communal life. The community looked after each other. Say if somebody died, the extended family takes it as a responsibility to look after maybe their brother's children, their brother's siblings, or the people that he left behind. There was a communal life where everybody tries to build in and inculcate everybody else who has nobody. So that cultural communal life became a thing, and it became some kind of local insurance for some people, that if I die, I know my brother is going to look after my family. It had its ups and downs though, it had its disadvantages. But then it did solve a problem then. But look at the world we live in now. Mass migration now means that that communal life of the past is no longer there, because everybody is now moving out, looking for greener pastures, looking for where and ways to survive. And because of that, people are now living more individual solo lives. So they now have to cater for themselves. There is the extended family system that looked after those you couldn't look after when you're no more there. They are no longer in existence. They're no longer there. So if you don't look after your family becomes vulnerable. And they become vulnerable to the point that even some of the extended families begin to feed on their vulnerability. So it is now your job as a family unit to look after yourselves and make sure that all your needs are catered for beyond the present generation. Okay, now the last but not the least challenge before we round up today, because we're going to continue this session next week, right? And next week I'm going to be talking to you guys about why black people should really seek insurance, and then we're also going to discuss some solutions to some of these challenges that we have mentioned here. So the last but not the least of those challenges I'm going to discuss today is religious misinformation and misunderstanding. I mean, the point will not be complete without this angle, this religious angle to the whole arrangement. The black communities, it's no secret that we're very religious. Right from their ancestors, we are religious. We believe in something. Right from our African roots, we believe in something. We have gods that people believed in then. And then the influx of the of Christianity and other forms of foreign religion came into Africa and changed the whole scenario. So there are multiple religious beliefs now, every single one of them struggling to make an impact and struggling to hold its own people down and faithful to them. So whatever it is that Africans believe in, that thing is strong for them. Now the dominant religion, especially among Africans abroad or in the Western world, is Christianity. And Christianity has taken a very strong hold of the African people with their faith in there. Slave trade and slavery helped also, entrench Christianity in the African community, because the church now became a place of comfort and succor for those who were suffering as slaves. They came together as a church and they encouraged each other, and their faith kept them going. Now that faith is something that is getting in the way of a lot of people in understanding what insurance is. So when you talk about life insurance, some of them think you're asking them not to trust God. You're asking them not to believe in God. Some of them think that it is an act of faithlessness in God. No, it's not. That you're catering for your family and that you're planning ahead does not mean that you do not trust God, or that you do not love God, or that you do not believe that much in God. It simply means that your faith in God is not interfering with your perception of reality. Because reality is that life happens, and life includes death. There is appointed to a man a time to live and a time to die. There's time for everything. So when you die, you leave all those things behind, and that happens, then it happens. So your faith should not get in the way of your perception of reality. So that if you grab that reality and you understand what it is, you run with it, and then you can arrange what you need to arrange and plan when you need to plan. It's all about financial planning. Financial planning involves insurance, and it does not in any way say that your faith, it does not make your faith any inferior. So folks, thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you for listening. Thank you for watching wherever you're watching. Do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Modesty Property Consultants YouTube channel, where we post a lot of our videos on YouTube as well. And share this video to as many people as you feel need to hear this message of insurance, especially the black communities. And I'll see you guys again next week. We're going to continue this topic because we have a lot more to bring to you next week. God bless you. Thank you very much, and do have a lovely, lovely day. Bye now.